Okay, I'm already there. Someday I'll dwell with him. Well, what's the use of life today? I'm in a tent. What good is it now? And we tend to just try to avoid, and you know the statement, too heavenly minded to be earthly good. When you say, that sounds all good, but are you sure that's not just your opinion? You're like veering off. Well, I would say it would be my opinion if it wasn't for this passage written in 2 Thessalonians, which, by the way, is written by Paul as well, and I do want you to see it. And I didn't give this to Eric because it's a bunch of verses. I don't know how many we're going to read. But 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, begin reading in verse 5. And the Lord direct your hearts into the love of God and into patient waiting for Christ. Now, here's where he's Brother Ivan, he's beginning to roll this out. Because what's going on are these people are too heavenly minded to be earthly good. In fact, what's going on, we're about to see, is they just quit living. They quit working. They quit taking care of their family. They quit doing everything. And they just said, church, you take care of me. And we are waiting to be blessed of God. We're only going to do godly things. And here's Paul's direct response to that mindset. Now we command you, brethren, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that ye withdraw yourselves from every brother that walketh disorderly. Well, that could be a big phrase, disorderly. So we're going to keep reading, and he's going to tell us what this disorderly means. And not after the tradition which he received of us. So what is he about to say? What is he about to call disorderly? Well, disorderly is not doing like we did, and he's about to show us what he did. For you yourselves know how you ought to follow us, for we behaved not ourselves disorderly among you, neither did we eat any man's bread for naught, but wrought with labor and travail night and day, that we might not be chargeable to any of you. You know what he said? It's very important what you do down here. In fact, it's very important that you work. You mean making my widgets and bringing home money? And that's not very important in the scope of my heavenly home. Well, yes, it is. It's very important. Neither do we eat any man's bread for naught, but wrought with labor and travail night and day, that we might not be chargeable to any of you, not because we have not power to make ourselves an example unto you to follow us. For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. For we hear, and you can just, verse 15, jump down to verse 15, or I'm going to spend here and not have time left on the clock. Yet count him not as enemy, but admonish him as a brother. I just want to throw that in, because sometimes we get so mean. It says stand off. It says get away from him. It says, you know, we're not punishing him. We're counting him as a little brother. We're trying to help him. And if they're going, and we'll see why this matters so much. How we live today matters. Brother Wayne, it's not just, okay, so I got to get through now, sooner or later, rapture comes or I die, and then life is wonderful. Yes, then life's going to be wonderful. But he came that we might have abundant life, and that abundant life is now. And what we do now matters for then. And that's one of the things Paul's about to encourage us with. Doug, yes, let me encourage you. This is not all there is. You're created for better. Be encouraged. Well, that and then ends inevitably with, okay, well, I'm just waiting for better. Well, you're not just waiting for better, because what you're doing now affects better. It matters today. And that's where Paul's about to roll on in the next 5 verses, which is what we're going to try to look at. Now, you know, that question, what's there to live for? I do want to give this quote out. I wish we put the camera right there. Right in front of that clock. This comes from 1979. I love this quote. It's by Malcolm Muggeridge. If you've never read anything by Malcolm Muggeridge, he was a English writer, but you'll see. He's very eloquent. I mean, I can't even think like this, let alone write like this. I couldn't dream like this. But in answering a question about, the world's despair or selfishness or the disrespect of the young people at that time, all things that would make sense to us today, this is how he responded. He summed up the end of Western civilization. Now, this is in 1979, so we're pretty much talking, close to 50 years ago. This is back there. He summed it up this way. The final conclusion would seem to be that whereas other civilizations have been brought down by attacks of barbarians from without, ours had the unique distinction of training its own destroyers and its own educational institutions. And then we provided them with facilities for propagating their destructive ideology far and wide, all at the public expense. 50 years ago. Brother Wayne, why do I want to look at this? Because you want to know what there is to be discouraged about? I'll tell you, this is discouraging. When we stand back and actually look, our civilization will be brought down by attacks not from barbarians on the outside, but because we trained our own destroyers at our own educational institutions and provided them with facilities for propagating their destructive ideology far and wide at the public expense. Thus did Western man decide to abolish himself, creating his own boredom out of his own affluence, his own vulnerability out of his own strength, his own impotence out of his own erotomania. I don't even know if that's a word, but he wrote it, so himself blowing the trumpet that brought the walls of his own city tumbling. And having convinced himself that he was too numerous, he labored with pills and with scalpels and with syringes to make himself fewer. That's talking about the drug culture. Until at last, having educated himself into imbecility, I'm sure that's a word too, but I've never heard it before, and polluted and drugged himself into stupefaction, he keeled over a weary, battered old brontosaurus and became extinct. But Ivan, this is the time we're living in. There's plenty to be discouraged about. We're not talking about what to be discouraged about. Paul, it wasn't any better at this time. That's one of the things, Brother Wayne, it's so bad today. Well, I agree. But we like to think it was better then. You realize we were created to protest the way the world was then. They had no rights then. They had no voting. Most places had no property. All these things we're getting upset about today. Our life today would still be a dream to the people of that time period. It's so bad today, Justin. It was worse. Nobody's coming and taking my children and burning them or feeding them to lions, wrapping them up and making a human candle out of them. Does that mean there's no martyrs? No, there's martyrs. And there's struggle and there's persecution. We said it's bad. But I think it's something inside of man. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody's ever had it worse than me. It was bad at this time. And so Paul is writing to a very similar time period to say, verse 6, therefore, not only do we not lose heart, not only are we not struggling, therefore, we are always confident. We're full of hope and dream and belief. I have not lost heart. I know this is going to happen. I just don't know what this is yet. Knowing that whilst we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight. We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. So here's this first encouragement comes out in verses 6 through 8. We are very confident. We are full of hope. I'm always confident. I'm always assured. I'm full of courage moving forward. Why? Well, two reasons. The key word there is the therefore. This is back to, how I get Paul. Paul, therefore. I've said these things in the past, therefore. Now let's build on the step. And his therefore are two things. One, first, this life is lived by faith. There's some belief. There's some hope here. All throughout this whole passage, if you go back to chapter 4, all throughout this passage, it's full of faith and believing. God is acting. That's what's going on. And that's why I have hope. That's why I have confidence. That's why I don't lose heart. 4, 8 through 10, we looked at this. We're troubled, but not distressed. We're persecuted, but we're not forsaken. We're bearing about the body, but in this bearing and struggle and beating about my body, life is what's born. Verses 11 through 13. For we which live are always delivered unto death for Jesus' sake. And the life also of Jesus might be made manifest in our mortal flesh. So then death worketh in us, but life in you. Brother Maddox, he says, look, yes, it's bad. But you know what I know? I know, I believe, I have faith. It's my hope. It's why I don't lose heart. God is doing something. And that's what, life is bad now. Brother Wayne, you know what we have to believe? I almost said God is going to do something. No, God is doing something. If we have faith that God is doing something, okay, our confidence is high. The God of this world may have blinded their eyes, but he has not blinded his eyes. And he is the God on a limited scale. And we serve the God of unlimited. And he says, because of this, because I walk in this faith, my hope is in that God is doing something. He can be counted both to do something now and to do something in the future. That's why I'm confident. I have a relationship with I forget what you said when you prayed, Ben. With a faithful, loving, living, merciful, holy God. That's who I have a relationship with, and this relationship I know is through faith. He doesn't get to come down, and I don't see him physically, and he doesn't sit down and put his arm around me and encourage me, but nevertheless, he is present with me, and he reassures me. Therefore, I'm confident. Eric, I did give you those. Christ said it this way, John 14:1. Yes. We're going to 2 verses in John 14, so go to John 14. And if I go, it's the second verse. Oh, here you go. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. Now, you know why he says this? You know why he says this, Mr. Gonzalez? He says this because they were troubled. He just said, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. You don't know where I'm going, and you can't come. Life is gone as they know it. And this is what he says. Let not your heart be troubled. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God? Do you believe God is doing something? Then this is how he comforts them. Believe also in me. I'm doing something. And then he closes this chapter out. Give me the next one. I knew this. The reason I turned here. 18. John 14:18. Did I give you all of it? Yeah. I will not leave you comfortless. I will come to you. Yet a little while, and the world seeth me no more. But ye see me, because I live, ye shall live also. Here we go. At that day ye shall know that I am in my Father, and ye in me, and I in you. So there's what he says. He says, don't be troubled. Don't let this get you down. Have faith. God is doing something. I am doing something. And there will come a day it will be revealed to you. Paul says, okay, so I'm perplexed, but I'm not discouraged. I'm beaten down, but I don't faint. Because I know that this life of faith, how about this one? Did I give you Matthew 28? I think I did. All right, Matthew 28. I am with you always, even to the end of the earth. Well, if the end of the earth comes, I'm not here. I'll be out of the tent. But is there anything more comforting? Justin, situations going on. In this life, there are real problems. There's economic problems. There's health problems. I mean, we got a lot of health problems right now. Brother Ivan, it's good to see you, but I have not forgot about Miss Joyce. Or Brother Ben. Or Brother Bill. There are a lot of situations. There's relational situations. There's political situations. We live in a time of situations. But in these time of situations, understand this. God is doing something no matter what the situation. There's hope. Be strong. He is with us. walk by this faith. According to the multitude of his tender mercies, we have a full supply of love and peace and knowledge and power and understanding and wisdom right now. Is that reason enough for us to be confident? That's what Paul's starting to talk to. That's where he's rolling it out. Whew. Ooh. Let me do this. I usually use the other Bible. I forgot why. Because this one's too big to fit on the podium. Messes up my little staging points. Another reason is in verse 9. 2 Corinthians 5, verse 9. Verse 8, for we are confident, I say, willing rather to be absent from the body or to be present with the Lord. Verse 9, wherefore we labor, that whether present or absent, we may be acceptable of him. Let me tell you. We don't faint. We are confident. We're confident first. We're confident first because we live a life of faith. And he said he's not going to abandon us. And he says he's doing something. And he says in the end, it'll be revealed. And we live a life of faith. And stop and think about it here. You know, this whole picture of the tent. You know, verse 8. Okay, I'm in this tent. And think of my options. Okay, I stay in the tent. And we're going to see in verse 9, I stay in the tent and I want to please him. Or the rapture comes and I go to heaven and I want to please him. Or I die and I'm resurrected and I go to heaven and I want to please him. No matter what happens, I'm motivated by this. I want to please him. I want all that I do to be acceptable to him. I want him to be happy with how I'm living my life. You know what that does? That gives me confidence. That means I don't faint. That means I am strong of heart. It's not going to waver. I started to look at that. And I have to admit, I get to this 5, verse 9. Wherefore we labor, that whether we're present or absent. Now, when I first read this, preacher, let me give some confession. When I first read this, we labor. Okay, if this was we labor when we're absent, I'm gonna work hard when I'm down here so that while I'm absent from him, he's happy with me. I wouldn't have even stopped to think about it. I just would have went on. That is proper motivation. But it does not say whether absent. It says whether present or absent, whether in the tent or in the body, the new body, the dwelling with him body, the in relationship in heaven time. I labor. Well, that made me do this. That made me go back and say, Eric, you got that picture? Yeah, this is what I do. That's not a very big picture. That's probably my fault. So when I get stumped, which is often, I go back, and preacher, you know what that is. That's a concordance of every word. That's broken down every word. Brother Maddox, so I start going through every word. Wherefore we labor. I didn't get very far. I get to that word labor. Because to me, that has one meaning. Monday morning. That's the picture of labor to me. So what? I don't have that picture. And when I did, I was just looking at that pain monitor. Come on, what's the record, nurse? We want the record. We want to win something when we leave here. Our firstborn was 10 pounds, 14 ounces. We won something. Yeah, she won the pain record. And I used to shoot those little hats right off his head. His head was too big. Pew, pew. Well, here you go. No, I can't even get my brain straight. I wish you could see this word I have to try to pronounce. Philaamahia. There you go. I'm glad I don't speak Greek. But it goes on, here you go. Middle voice from a compound, gives me two other. To be fond of honor. Eager or earnest to do something. Labor, strive, study. To be fond of honor. To be accentuated by love of honor. From love of honor to strive to bring something to pass. To be ambitious. To strive earnestly to make it one's aim. Well, Brother Gonzalez, I started thinking about that. That's a whole lot more than Monday morning to me. In fact, one word stuck out there in that on a whole list. There's only one. I can't handle a whole lot. And that was this idea of ambitious. It's desire, it's his drive, it's his purpose, it's his will. But ambitious carries more with it to me. Ms. Maddox, ambitious is it's like, I want to accomplish it. I want to get it done. And so I started looking for, this was very disappointing to me, by the way. This was very disappointing. So I started looking for great quotes on ambition, because I'm like, this is beautiful. Let me give you the quotes I found on ambition. Ambition, this is written by one of the great Puritans in America. So you're going back to the early 1700s. Ambition is a gilded misery. Ambition is secret poison. Ambition is hidden plague. Ambition is the engineer of deceit, the mother of hypocrisy, the parent of envy. Ambition is the original vice of angels and men. Ambition is the destroyer of virtue, the blinder of hearts. It is ambition that turns medicine into maladies and remedies into disease. Wasn't sounding very beautiful. Let me find another one. Blind ambition has caused people to compromise their convictions, violate their supposed beliefs, and sacrifice their character. And ambition sort of finds its way into the category of words like unscrupulous, self-centered, proud, driven, insensitive, careless. Let me find another one. So then I did this. Well, let's just kind of step aside, and maybe it's the definition of the word ambitious. So I did a little study on the English word ambition. The English word ambition comes from a Latin word, and it basically ties to politicians. It literally means to go both ways. And it's talking about a politician who would do anything, say anything to either side of the group just to get them to endorse them. So I tried one more. This was, I'm inclined to think that ambition in any ordinary sense of the term is nearly always sinful in ordinary men. I am certain, he said, that in Christians it is always sinful, and that it is most inexcusable in the ordained minister. How can this be? He goes on to even say, we might conclude that ambition may well have been the dominating sin for which Jesus came into the world to die. Because we, children of Adam, we wanted to become great, he had to become small. Because we will not stoop, he humbled. Because we want to rule, he came to serve. And then, preacher, there's even a Bible verse, Jeremiah 45:5, says, you want to be great. You don't want a good thing. You don't want that. And Brother Maddox, I'm like, I started to, maybe I should bury this whole idea of ambition. Just hide it. Just not bring it up. Well, then you feel bad because you're hiding something. And so then I shouldn't have put that away. So then I started thinking more. No, you see, the difference here is that in this picture, they're wanting themselves to be great. But when we start to look at Paul, let's look and see what Paul wanted. See, Paul was not wanting Paul to be great. Paul had great ambition. He had the noblest of ambition. Paul's ambition was that God be pleased with him. See, the problem is not that there's a problem with ambition. In fact, it's one of those things, the word for lust is epithumia. I think preachers talked about this multiple times. And it simply means strong desire. Well, I think during at least my growing up in church, we have worked so hard to teach young people that you shouldn't lust. What we've almost done is taking away their desire. And you can't take away desire. We're supposed to have the desires of our heart. He gives us the desires of our heart. What we have to do is focus that desire so that what we desire is a noble thing. And what Paul is doing right here is just kind of that same idea, that same picture. His desire, his ambition, his goal, his purpose. It's all the same. And it is that he be pleased with me. That Justin, that the things that I do, they put a smile on his face. That he is happy. So he is with us, and I get to please him. He has this noble picture. And, I really do think, and this is probably good because I'm not getting to the part that would have made me feel bad for picking on you, Ben. I really do believe that one of the things that we have taken away is we have taken away ambition. We have taken away desire. And that's where we get this picture. Brother Wayne, I'm living in this world. I'm living in my tent. Oh, hum, I can't wait to go to heaven. Well, there's some good things there. Like, it's truthful. You're living in a tent. And we should be looking forward to heaven. But right now, there's some good things to do. We should have some ambition with the time we have now. Rob, we don't just wake up, oh, it's Monday. Well, actually, we do. I'm telling on you and me. But this is the day that he's given us. And he's with us, and he's trying to do some things. Our God is working. Paul said, I don't lose hope. I don't lose heart. I'm confident. I'm encouraged. I know some things are going on. And though the world's a mess, and though it doesn't make sense, and though I'm perplexed, and though I'm beaten down, I know that God is doing some things, and I keep my focus on, I want to please him. He gives us a couple pictures of, and I'll just, I'll just stick these out there. He gives us a couple pictures of striving, in Romans 15. I think it's like verse 20, 21. It's in that section. I think I gave you the section, but he says this is the reason why I've strived to preach the gospel. That's that same picture, Brother Maddox. He strived. It is his ambition. It is his goal. It is his desire. This is why I do it. Okay? Because it's who I am. In 1 Timothy, he would write to Timothy and he would say, if a man desires, if he seeks, if he wants the office of a bishop, then he desires a good thing. This is a good work. Paul encourages us to have desires. He encourages us to have ambition. He encourages us to be motivated. He has ambition for the highest goal possible. This is the opposite. See, Ben, you remember when we were coaching? See, I'm trying to get you back in here so I don't feel so bad, right? You remember when we were coaching? You got two different kind of kids. You got this group of kids, and they're almost impossible to coach. All that they care about is the cheers they're going to hear from the parents or the crowd or whatever. The only thing they want is an award. Okay, all that matters to them is that everybody tells them they're great. And when they're out there, that's what they're putting on for all the people who are watching them. Brother Maddox, what makes them impossible to coach, Doug, you know this, is they can't do anything wrong. So anytime they mess up, you'll find these kids right away, because as soon as they do something bad on the basketball court or on the football field, they're turning around and they're yelling at somebody else. They instantly have to come up with the blame. And they tear about a team. They just cause division. Okay? But then there you have this other group. And they don't really care about what any of that noise is. The only thing they care about is when they come over to the sidelines that the coach says, just what I wanted you to do, son. Doug. They're so easy to coach because all that matters to them is that the coach is pleased. We've got two kinds of Christians. One, can't do anything wrong. But Gonzalez, you can find them because they're always throwing doubt and shade and blame and attack on somebody else. Because they can't ever be weak and broken and living in a tent. Okay, but then you have the other. And Paul would say that. I gave you 1 Corinthians. Give me 1 Corinthians. I was going to skip this, but I did. Paul would say this. He's talking to him, and this is back in 1 Corinthians. Back in 1 Corinthians, back in 1 Corinthians, they had this whole battle going on. I'm of Christ, I'm of Apollos, I'm of Paul, I'm of Peter, I'm better than you are because, and Paul in the middle would write this to him. But with me, it's a very small thing that I should be judged of you. Now, I think we read this poorly, by the way. We tend to read this like this. I don't care what you think of me. I think that's what Paul is saying. Okay. In fact, Paul very much is probably writing to those who backed him. That's what I think. I think Paul is saying, I know you think I'm great, but I don't do this so you think I'm great. But with me, it's a very small thing that I should be judged of you, or of man's judgment, or of you who think me great, or of the stepbrother and the 3 sad blisters, or of man's judgment. Yea, I judge not mine own self. It doesn't even matter what I think about myself. For I know nothing by myself. I don't know anything. The things I've done, I can't do anything. When I plan out my life, it's not even my plan. See, it's this book right here that tells me what's good and what's not and what to do and what to avoid. This didn't come from me. This came from the Holy Spirit of God. I know nothing by myself, yet am I not hereby justified, but that he that judgeth me is the Lord. Paul would say in the first letter to him, and he's just kind of bringing it back out again, that my ambition is of the highest goal, and it is that he might be pleased with me. Now, we'll do this. It's time to quit, and that worked out well. Because next week we have to look at this other motivation. And it is one of the more difficult things to look at because there are so many different ideas that's thrown in. But Paul says, wherefore we labor that whether present or absent we may be accepted of him, knowing this, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body according that he hath done, whether it be good or bad. And that last little phrase messes up a lot of things we hear about this passage. So we'll look at that next week. Doug, we close in? Yes, sir.
The fact that we labor both in the body and out of the body. Some people think, oh, we're just going to sit up on a cloud and have a plate our heart and chocolate bomb on. But we're going to labor through that.
Yes, sir, we are.
Labor was not part of the curse. It was before the curse ever came.
Yes, sir, it was.
That's just a little sidebar.
No, it's not a sidebar. It's a whole page that I threw down there.
Oh.
Because I can't say it as fast as you. Brother Doug, will you close in a word of prayer, please?